Hi everyone, I'm Xingyu from Fudan University. Today I'll be presenting our work, Affective Visualization Design, Leveraging the Emotional Impact of Data. This paper is collaborated by me and Yanqiu and Nan Cao, who are from Intelligent Big Data Visualization Lab, Tongji University. In fact, in recent years, we have seen more and more exploration of visualization plus emotion. Some are academic papers, such as investigating how to color visualization with affective palette. There are also a lot of practice in the wild. For example, many news agencies or companies have created visualizations with affective qualities to help data communication. Over the past few years, we have also done a series of work surrounding this research direction, such as how various elements in infographics would influence emotion, how to enhance the affective expressiveness of charts using animation, and how narrative techniques such as structures, visual representations, and interaction relate to emotion in data storytelling. Briefly speaking, we have found that the design elements in data visualization can indeed influence emotion. Even with the same data, different design can evoke different feelings and responses, and some factors have already shown a significant correlation with emotion in user experiments. However, after these efforts, we still face several challenges. Firstly, the definition and scope of research in affective visualization are not yet clear. What exactly is affective visualization and how to study it remains unexplained. Secondly, the legitimacy of studying emotion in the context of visualization design has not been systematically clarified. That is, what is exactly the necessity of studying emotion? Thirdly, we still lack theory and a clear picture of how to operationalize affective visualization design. Only by answering such questions can we really understand existing knowledge and practice in this growing field and suggest concrete strategies and directions for both researchers and designers. So first, we conducted a literature review. To start with, we went through papers published in IEEE TVCG, ACM CHI, and EuroVis in the recent 3 years and searched for papers that studied both visualization and emotion. As previous literature has suggested that there might be a connection between emotion and visual art, we also searched the papers published in the IEEE VIS art program. As a result, we in total identified 24 papers that conducted research about visualization and mentioned emotion-related words in their keywords, titles, or major conclusions. Based on these 24 papers, we employed a snowballing approach to discover more related articles. During the snowballing, we immediately encountered a challenge, that is, the ambiguity of research boundaries and concept usage. For example, we noticed that affective visualization, this concept has been used in different contexts to refer to different meanings. To address this challenge and also clarify the research scope of our work, we categorized the papers into 3 research threads. So the first one studies emotion as the object being visualized. For instance, some researchers have developed a visualization analytics system to extract emotions from music videos and call the visualization in their system affective visualization. Secondly, some researchers studied emotion as a precondition that exists before viewing visualization. For example, Harrison et al. Measured how people's positive or negative emotion influence the accuracy of their interpretation of visualizations. And the third thread of research studies emotion as a result of viewing data visualization and highlights the needs of considering viewers' subjective experience in visualization design. For example, Bartram et al. Defined affective visualization as a type of visualization that uses visual features to evoke a mood, feeling, or impression, and proposed a set of color palettes that can convey emotion in chart design. Similarly, one of our previous work called Kinetic Charts proposed an animation design scheme for creating animated charts that can express emotion desired by data stories. In summary, we found that there are at least 3 different lines of research that stand at the intersection of visualization and emotion. But since the concept affective visualization has been used in a broad sense and has already involved diverse work about emotion, we propose that its definition can be more inclusive and encompassing. By referring to the definition of affective computing, we define affective visualization as a data visualization that relates to, arises from, or influences emotion. Next, we clarify that what this work intends to focus on is the third research thread, that is, emotion as a result of visualization design. As the core issue that distinguishes this research thread from the other 2 is its emphasis on the role of design, we use the term affective visualization design in the following texts to refer to a class of data visualizations designed to communicate and influence emotion. According to the definition, we refined our corpus and only kept papers about affective visualization design, which eventually resulted in 109 papers. Here are some basic information about these papers. The majority of these papers were published in the venues of computer science, followed by geography, sociology, and communication. In terms of temporal trends, the community of geography has shown earlier interest in this research topic, and since about 2010, the papers published in the area of computer science began to mushroom and gradually become the main part of the research about affective visualization design. Regarding the types of research, most papers belong to the theoretical and empirical category. However, in recent years, we see more and more novel representation, interaction methods, as well as design applications being proposed to enrich the toolkit of affective visualization design and lower its authoring barrier. With this corpus in hand, we moved on to the second step, that is, analyzing how these papers justify the necessity of considering emotion in visualization. As a result, we identified 7 different arguments categorized into 5 perspectives. First, 76 papers argue from the perspective of application, and they mainly emphasize 2 points: the importance of emotion in specific domains and the emergence of new application scenarios. For example, in one of our previous works, we found that during the pandemic, a significant amount of data stories were released by news agencies to convey negative emotions like anger and anxiety to make people aware of the severity of the situation. Second, 67 papers argue from the perspective of usefulness, emphasizing that emotion is not the enemy of rationality and that emotion may bring additional benefits. For instance, one study found that if the content is negative but is presented with a positive color palette, it can increase the cognitive burden on users. Conversely, if the content and emotional expression align, the communication effectiveness will be improved, showing that emotion can work with or even amplify rationality. Third, 17 papers argue from a rhetorical perspective, contending that completely objective visualizations do not exist. For example, the blue chart here shows the unemployment rate in the US decreased during the Democrats' administration, while the red chart shows the rate is constantly high from a Republican perspective. Both charts are concise, minimal, and have high data ink ratio. However, they actually deliver totally contradictory messages and are not objective. So the fourth one is the perspective of sociology. It argues that our current tendency to avoid emotion in visualization design is not a golden rule, but is constructed by the historical context, culture, and social values. For example, researchers have found that emotion played an important role in charts designed in the 19th century when romantic values, which emphasized individualism, emotion, and imagination, dominated all forms of design. The last one is the perspective of humanism, which argues that data should not be cold and cruel. For example, this pie chart depicting accident fatalities was criticized as a cruel pie, as you can see no real people and their tragic behind data. Next, step 3, we conducted a design analysis to explore the landscape of affective visualization design. Specifically, we analyzed the 61 affective visualization design projects that are either published as research papers themselves or cited by research papers in our corpus, with the goal of understanding where they were applied, what are their design tasks, and how they were designed. For the where question, we found that most of the design projects were applied to fields such as the environment, social issues, and healthcare. Typical topics include climate change, social equality, and mental stress. For the what question, we identified 10 different tasks of affective visualization design, including inform, engage, experiment, provoke, advocate, socialize, heal, empower, commemorate, and archive. This project, for example, is a data-driven installation that visualizes the shrinking speed of the glacier in Alaska. Through the design, the designer aims to inform the viewers with the fact of global warming. And this is an infographic that visualizes the number of soldiers who died in the Iraq War. As explained by the designer, the design choice was made deliberately to create a striking visual and draw readers into the graphic. This is a data story about gun shootings created mainly to explore the elicitation of emotion through an immersive environment. This is an edible visualization designed to provoke critical discourse about physical activities. The designers translated users' heart rate data into 3D printed slogans, emojis, and flower-like graphs using chocolate to create a playful and fun experience. And this is an interactive website that advocates action in saving water. This webpage visualized the huge amount of water consumption every day and urges viewers strongly to change their living habits. And this is called Dear Data. During this project, 2 designers drew visualizations on postcards based on their personal data collected every week. The designers used these visualizations to collaborate and make friends. This installation maps people's stress levels to the colors of a street metaphorically. This visualization was designed to help people relax and reduce negative thoughts. This project surveyed women who have experienced harassment. The knots can be unfolded to show their testimonies to help bring the sensitive and uneasy stories to the foreground. This is a large installation made for the 100th anniversary of Britain's participation in the World War I. Each poppy represents a fallen soldier and is also a sign of commemoration. The designer documents colors and physical objects that triggered her sensory experience along a walking route, and then visualized the data as space-time cubes to facilitate subjective interpretation and recollection. Last, for the how question, we found that the 61 affective visualization design project can be categorized into 6 major genres, including the interactive interface, video, static image or painting, installation, artifact, and event. For those familiar with the research about data storytelling, you may recall that in 2010, Segal and Hare proposed the 7 common narrative genres in their classic paper. If we make a comparison, we can find that the representations of visualization design have expanded significantly in recent years. Apart from static images and interactive web pages, we now can embrace more design options and possibilities. We also identified a total of 18 low-level design techniques, which we divided into 4 categories. The techniques in the sensory category elicit emotion through visual elements such as imagery and color, as well as other modalities such as sound, smell, and even taste. The narrative category involves storytelling methods such as personalized setting and narrative structure. The behavior category focuses on guiding people to perform predefined actions to experience emotion, and the context category manipulates the external context in which users view and interact with visualizations. By integrating all the information about where, what, and how that we've discussed, we finally derived this design space. We've also created a web page for this design space where you can interact with the cells and view the raw materials we analyzed. Finally, based on all the above research, we summarized the 3 main future avenues and 9 specific research opportunities. The first avenue is to conduct a more scientific evaluation of effective design techniques. Actually, many of the techniques we identified in our design space still lack proper evaluation. For design techniques that are controversial, we still need to cross-validate their effectiveness with larger samples and different methods. Besides, it is also necessary to study newly emerging techniques and expanding our methods to measure emotion. The second avenue is to embrace more application scenarios and uses for effective visualization design. In the future, we can expand our imagination and use this design approach to address a wider range of real-world problems. Another important lesson we have learned from this work is that rather than seeing people as passive information receivers, many design projects have treated people as active agents or collaborators. Under this paradigm, designers in fact relinquish some design rights to people and allow them to participate in or even dominate the process of data collection and visualization. So in the future, we may further explore the approaches to stimulating people's sense of agency and bringing data democratization in a higher level. Relating to this issue, more authoring tools can be developed to empower ordinary people to create or customize effective visualization design. The third direction is to research how to ethically and responsibly evoke emotion. While our work has put a lot of ink into discussing the legitimacy of emotion, we do not claim that emotion is always good and rationality is unnecessary, because emotion has always been a double-edged sword. For example, social science has a long history of examining how politicians and businessmen incite emotion to gain profit. Therefore, it is also crucial to study the ethical issues surrounding effective visualization design and develop guidelines that promote the responsible use of such design. So to sum up, this work contributes the clarification of the research threads about visualization plus emotion and the definition of effective visualization and effective visualization design. And it will also contribute a systematic summarization of arguments that justify the legitimacy of considering emotion in visualization, a formalized design space that depicts the landscape of effective visualization design, and an outline of future research opportunities. Last but not the least, I want to say our research on emotion is not limited to emotion itself, but we want to use emotion as a pivot to better understand people and how visualization can serve people better. Especially in an era where the rational forces of AI are rapidly expanding, can we go beyond pure rationality in our evaluation system for visualizations, and can we strive to create compelling, relatable, and friendly visualizations that make data accessible to a broader audience and society? I believe that emotion is a good entry point for us to consider such important questions.